The hallway is still dark when she wakes. It is not the soft kind of darkness that comes before a peaceful morning, but a quiet, heavy darkness that seems to press gently against the walls. The house is asleep. The floors are still. Even the distant street outside holds its breath in the early hour before dawn. She opens her eyes without needing to check the time. Her body already knows. For a moment, she lies still on her narrow bed, listening to the silence. The thin blanket rests lightly over her shoulders. The air in the small servant's room is cool, and the faint smell of coal lingers from the previous night's fire. She does not stretch. She does not yawn loudly. She simply breathes in, slowly, and then begins. Her feet touch the wooden floor, careful not to make a sound. The boards here can creak if stepped on too quickly, and sound travels easily through servant quarters. She has learned, over time, where to place her weight, how to move without disturbing the quiet. There is no candle lit yet. She dresses in near darkness. The fabric of her simple dress is familiar to her hands. She smooths it down, ties it neatly, adjusts the sleeves. Each movement is practiced, gentle, unhurried. Her apron is folded over the back of a chair. She picks it up and ties it carefully around her waist. Still no sound. Still no light. When she finally lifts the small candle and strikes a match, the flame blooms softly, casting a warm, trembling glow across the small room. Shadows stretch along the walls, then settle. She looks around only briefly. There is not much to see. A bed, a chair, a small chest, a wash basin. Everything in its place. Everything simple. Everything quiet. She takes the candle and opens the door. The corridor outside is long and narrow, lined with other doors just like hers, all closed, all silent. Somewhere behind one of them, another servant may already be awake, or perhaps not. Everyone keeps their own rhythm, though all must begin before the house above stirs. Her steps are soft as she walks down the hall, down the narrow staircase, into the lower parts of the house where her day truly begins. The kitchen is colder than her room. It always is at this hour. The large space feels empty without the fire burning. The hearth, dark and still, waits quietly. The metal tools nearby rest in place, untouched since the night before. She sets the candle down. For a moment, she simply stands there. Then she begins again. Her first task is the fire, always the fire. She kneels carefully, brushing aside the old ashes from yesterday. The small scraping sound echoes faintly, but no one hears. The house above remains asleep, wrapped in its quiet comfort. She builds the fire slowly, piece by piece, kindling first, then slightly larger pieces. Her hands move with a calm precision. She has done this so many times that there is no need to think about it. The match strikes. The flame catches. At first it is small. Then it grows. A soft crackling begins, gentle and steady. The warmth spreads slowly into the room, pushing back the cold. She watches it for a moment, making sure it will hold. It always does. When she stands, the day has truly begun, even if the sun has not yet risen. Now there is water to fetch. She takes the empty containers and steps outside through the back door. The air greets her with a quiet chill. The sky is still dark, though a faint hint of light rests along the horizon. The world feels wide and still at this hour. No carriage wheels, no voices, no footsteps, just the distant sound of early birds beginning their day. She walks to the pump, her breath steady, her steps even. The ground beneath her feet is firm, slightly damp from the night air. She begins to work the handle, the familiar motion smooth and rhythmic. Water flows, cold and clear. She fills each container carefully, not rushing, not spilling. The sound of water is soft, almost soothing in the stillness. When she finishes, she carries them back inside. The kitchen is warmer now. The fire has grown stronger, its gentle glow lighting the space more fully. She sets the water near the hearth, preparing it for heating. There is bread to check, dishes to arrange, surfaces to wipe. Each task follows the next without interruption, like a quiet rhythm that guides her through the early hours. Time passes, though it does not feel rushed. Upstairs, the house remains silent, but not for long. Soon, others will wake. Soon, footsteps will echo above her. Soon, voices will begin, and everything will move faster. But for now, there is only this: the soft crackle of the fire, the quiet movement of her hands, the gentle beginning of another long day. Before we go any further into this quiet routine, let me gently welcome you. You are listening to Mindleapic, a place where we slow everything down, where history becomes soft and calm, and where each story is meant to carry you gently toward rest. If you find comfort here, you might consider leaving a like or subscribing, so these quiet stories can return to you whenever you need them. You are also warmly invited to share where you are listening from, whether it is a busy city, a quiet town, or somewhere far from everything. It is always peaceful to imagine these stories reaching you wherever you are. Now, let us return to the house, where the day is slowly unfolding. The water begins to warm. She moves toward the long wooden table and runs her hand lightly across its surface. Even in the soft light, she can see where it needs attention. A cloth, slightly damp, moves in smooth circles, wiping away what little dust has settled overnight. Nothing is ever truly still in a house like this. Even when it seems quiet, there is always something to prepare. She listens as she works, not for conversation, not for music, but for the first sign: a creak above, a shift in the floor, a door opening. These are the sounds that signal the next stage of the morning. Until then, she continues. There are plates to arrange, laid out in careful order. Each one must be clean, each one placed just so. The cups follow, then the utensils. Everything has its place, and she knows each one without needing to think. Her movements remain gentle, unnoticed, essential. The fire grows warmer. The water begins to steam, and slowly, almost without warning, the house begins to wake. The first sound is almost too soft to notice, a quiet shift somewhere above, like a floorboard adjusting itself after a long rest. She pauses for just a moment, her hand resting lightly on the edge of the table, listening. Then it comes again, a faint step. The house is beginning to stir. She does not look up. There is no need. This is the moment she has been preparing for since the dark hours before dawn. Everything she has done so far has led to this quiet transition, when stillness slowly gives way to movement. The kettle is ready. She lifts it carefully, the handle warm in her hand, and places it nearer to the strongest part of the fire. Steam curls upward in thin, delicate threads, rising and disappearing into the air. There is comfort in this small detail, the way the steam moves, the way the warmth fills the room. She takes a cloth and begins wiping the edges of the wooden counter, her motions steady and even. She does not rush, but there is a quiet awareness now, a sense that time is beginning to move differently. Upstairs, another step. A door opens. Somewhere in the house, a bell may ring soon, or perhaps not yet. Each household follows its own rhythm, its own set of expectations. But the servants learn to listen for these small changes, to sense what is coming before it arrives. She moves toward the pantry. The door opens with a soft, familiar sound. Inside, shelves hold jars, loaves, small bundles wrapped in cloth. She selects what is needed for the morning without hesitation. Bread first, then a small portion of butter, a jar carefully handled, Everything is brought back to the table and placed with quiet precision. There is no waste of motion, no extra movement. Every action has purpose. Behind her, the fire continues its steady crackle. The warmth now fills the kitchen more fully, softening the chill that once settled in the corners. The room feels alive, though still calm. She slices the bread with care. The knife moves smoothly, creating even pieces. The sound is soft, almost lost beneath the gentle rhythm of the fire. Another sound above, this time more clear. Footsteps, not just one. The household is waking now. She sets the knife down and turns slightly, as if listening with her whole body. There is no urgency, but there is awareness. The day is shifting, and with it, her pace will slowly begin to change. Soon, others will enter the kitchen, other servants, the cook, perhaps the scullery maid. Each will bring their own tasks, their own quiet movements, their own place in the routine. But for now, she is still alone. She takes a small cloth and begins polishing the metal surface of a tray. The motion is slow, circular, almost meditative. The tray reflects the soft light of the fire, growing brighter with each careful pass. This, too, is part of the work. Not just doing, but maintaining, keeping everything as it should be. Above, a voice, muffled, distant. Then silence again. She sets the tray aside and checks the kettle. The water is nearly ready now, small bubbles forming beneath the surface. She adjusts its position slightly, ensuring it will not boil too quickly. Everything must be timed just right. Not too early, not too late. There is a balance in this routine, one that she has learned through repetition and quiet observation. The back door remains closed, but a faint line of morning light has begun to appear around its edges. The sky outside is slowly changing, though it is not yet bright. The world beyond the house is waking as well, but inside, everything is guided by the needs of those who live above. She moves to the sink area and begins rinsing, a few items left from the previous night. The water is cold, but her hands are used to it. The movements are gentle, steady, without hesitation. There is no conversation, no distraction, only the quiet flow of one task into the next. Then, finally, the sound comes. Clear, distinct. A bell. It rings from above, its tone soft but unmistakable. It is not loud, but it carries through the house with quiet authority. She does not react with surprise. She expected it. The bell is not a request. It is a signal. The day has fully begun. She dries her hands quickly but calmly, placing the cloth back where it belongs. Her posture shifts slightly, not tense, but more alert. Now there will be direction. Now there will be expectation. She takes the tray she polished earlier and begins arranging it. A cup, a small plate, bread, butter. Each item placed with care. Each detail checked twice without appearing to do so. Everything must be just right. Not perfect in a grand sense, but perfect in quiet precision. She lifts the tray. Its weight is familiar, balanced, steady. As she moves toward the kitchen door, the house above feels different now. No longer asleep, no longer still. It breathes with movement, with soft sounds that grow slightly stronger with each passing moment. She steps into the corridor. The air here is cooler again, but touched now by the faint warmth rising from below. The walls hold the quiet echoes of footsteps that have already passed through. She begins to walk, carefully, silently, the tray held level in her hands, each step placed with intention. The staircase rises before her, leading upward into the parts of the house where her presence must be both precise and nearly invisible. She climbs slowly, not from hesitation, but from practice. The tray must not shift. The items must not move. Even the smallest sound matters here. Halfway up, she pauses for the briefest moment, listening. Voices. Faint. A door closing. Then she continues. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretches out, lined with doors that are no longer fully silent. Light now slips beneath them, soft and pale. She moves forward, one step at a time, the tray steady, her breathing calm. The morning has begun, and she is already deep within it, moving quietly through a world that depends on her, even if it rarely notices her at all. The carpet on the upper floor softens her steps. It is thicker here, quieter, made to keep sound from traveling too far. Her shoes press gently into it as she walks, each movement careful and measured. The tray in her hands remains steady, the cup untouched, the bread still perfectly placed. She stops at the first door. For a moment she listens. There is a faint sound inside. Movement. Perhaps someone sitting up. Perhaps someone adjusting the blankets. The morning has reached this room before she has. She lifts her hand and taps lightly. Not a knock meant to announce loudly, just a soft signal. Then she waits. A pause follows, quiet and stretched, as if the room itself is deciding how to respond. Then a voice, gentle but tired, calls from within. She opens the door slowly. The room is dim, though not dark. The curtains are drawn, but a thin line of morning light slips through the edges. The air feels warmer than the hallway, still holding the comfort of sleep. She steps inside without a word. The tray is carried forward, placed carefully on a small table near the bed. The cup does not rattle. The plate does not shift. Everything lands as if it has always been there. She steps back. Her eyes lower slightly, not out of fear, but out of habit. It is the way she has learned to move in these spaces. Present, but not intrusive. Seen, but not fully noticed. The figure in the bed moves slightly. A hand reaches out. The tray is acknowledged. Her work in this room is complete. She turns and leaves as quietly as she entered, closing the door with a soft, controlled motion. The hallway greets her again with its calm stillness, though now it is touched with more life than before. Another door opens further down. A faint conversation drifts through the air, too soft to understand. She does not stop. There are more rooms, more trays, more small moments like this one. She returns to the staircase, descending carefully, her hands now empty, but her mind already moving to the next task. The rhythm continues, unbroken, steady. Back in the kitchen, the space has changed. The cook has arrived. She stands near the hearth, her presence filling the room in a quiet but certain way. There is no need for loud instructions. The understanding between them is silent, built over many mornings just like this one. The cook glances at her briefly. A small nod. It is enough. The servant moves toward the table, beginning the next sequence without needing to be told. More food must be prepared. More trays arranged. The household is fully awake now, and the pace, though still calm, carries a deeper sense of movement. Another servant enters, younger. Her steps are quicker, less practiced. She carries a small basket, placing it down with a bit more sound than intended. She pauses, as if aware of it, then continues more carefully. There is no scolding, only quiet adjustment. The room fills slowly with soft activity, the sound of utensils, the movement of cloth, the gentle opening and closing of cupboards. Everything blends into a steady background rhythm that feels almost like a low, constant hum. The main servant returns to the fire. She adjusts it slightly, adding a piece of wood, watching as the flames respond. The warmth deepens again, spreading through the kitchen, and reaching into the corners where the cold once lingered. She takes another tray, begins again. The pattern repeats, but it does not feel repetitive. Each room is slightly different. Each moment carries its own small detail. She moves through the tasks with a quiet focus, her hands never idle, her mind always a step ahead of what comes next. At one point, she pauses near the window, just for a second. The light outside has grown stronger now, soft gold stretching across the edges of the sky. The world beyond the house is fully awake, though it still feels distant from where she stands. There is no time to linger. She turns back. The next task is already waiting. A stack of linens sits folded on a chair. She picks them up, feeling their weight, their texture. They must be taken upstairs, replaced, arranged. Everything must be refreshed, renewed, made ready for the day ahead. She carries them with the same care as the tray before. Up the stairs again. The hallway is brighter now. More doors open, more movement. She passes another servant, who nods slightly as they cross paths. No words are exchanged. There is no need. Everyone understands their place within this quiet system. She enters a room that has already been vacated. The bed is unmade, the sheets slightly tangled. She sets the linens down and begins. Her hands move with practiced ease, smoothing, straightening, folding, tucking. Each motion is gentle but precise, transforming the space back into order. The room shifts as she works, from used to fresh, from disturbed to calm. She adjusts the pillows last, placing them just so, stepping back for a brief moment to see the result. There is a quiet satisfaction in this, though it is never spoken. She lifts the used linens, carries them out. The door closes softly behind her. The hallway continues its slow hum of movement. The house, once still and silent, is now alive in a quiet, controlled way. Guided by unseen hands and steady routines, she walks back toward the stairs once more, her steps as careful as ever, her presence blending into the rhythm of the house, moving forward without pause, without recognition, yet always exactly where she needs to be. By the time she returns to the kitchen again, the morning has settled into a steady flow. It is no longer the quiet beginning. It is something fuller now. The fire burns strong, its warmth spreading easily across the room. The kettle has been replaced, refilled, and set again. The air carries the soft scent of bread, of tea, of something gently cooking. Nothing is rushed, but nothing is still. The cook moves with quiet authority, guiding the pace without raising her voice. A glance, a slight movement of the hand, a small shift in where something is placed. These are the signals that shape the morning. The servant notices them all. She steps to the side as another tray is brought forward. She reaches for a cloth without looking, knowing exactly where it rests. Her hands continue their steady work, wiping, arranging, preparing. There is a rhythm here that feels almost like breathing, in and out, task and task, movement and stillness. The younger servant from earlier stands near the sink now, rinsing dishes with careful attention. Her movements are quieter than before, more controlled. She has found her place within the flow. No one speaks, and yet everything is understood. The main servant takes a moment to check the list in her mind. It is not written anywhere, but it exists clearly within her thoughts. Rooms prepared, trays delivered, linens replaced. But there is always more. There is always something that comes next. She moves toward a small cupboard and opens it gently. Inside are cleaning tools, brushes, folded cloths, small containers. She selects what she needs and closes the door without sound. The next part of the morning is less visible, less noticed, but no less important. She steps back into the corridor, this time carrying not a tray, but the quiet tools of cleaning. The house above may already appear orderly, but there are small details that must be cared for before the day fully begins. She starts with the staircase, the same one she has climbed and descended several times already. Now she sees it differently, not as a path, but as a task. She kneels slightly, brushing away the faint traces of dust that have gathered along the edges. It is not much, almost nothing to the untrained eye, but she sees it clearly. Each stroke is gentle, each motion precise. She moves slowly upward, step by step, her focus steady. The brush makes only the softest sound, barely noticeable against the quiet background of the house. When she reaches the top, she stands and looks briefly along the hallway. There are small things here too. A mark near the base of the wall, a slight shift in a runner rug, a faint smudge on a surface. She corrects each one without hesitation. It is not about making the house perfect. It is about keeping it as it should be, maintained, balanced, unchanged. She continues from one end of the hallway to the other, her presence passing through like a quiet adjustment. Doors remain closed now, voices behind them softer, more settled into the day. In one room she hears laughter, light, brief. It fades quickly. In another there is only silence again. She pauses near a window. The light has grown stronger, filling the corridor with a soft glow. It stretches across the floor, touching the walls, resting gently on the surfaces she has just cleaned. For a moment, everything feels calm again. Not empty like before, but complete. She moves on, down another staircase, into a different part of the house. Here, the air feels cooler again, less touched by the warmth of the kitchen, less shaped by the movement of the upper floors. This space holds its own quiet rhythm, separate but connected. She begins again. Surfaces, corners, small details that no one will notice unless they are not done. Her hands move with the same steady care, her mind focused, her breathing even. Time passes without being marked. There are no clocks here that matter, only the sequence of tasks, only the gentle movement from one responsibility to the next. At some point, she returns to the kitchen once more. The space feels fuller now, more prepared. The early rush of morning tasks has softened into something steadier. The cook stands near the table, checking what has been laid out. The younger servant moves more confidently, her earlier uncertainty replaced by quiet focus. The main servant steps in without interrupting. She places her tools back where they belong, each item returned to its place. Nothing left out, nothing forgotten. She washes her hands, the cool water running over her fingers, carrying away the small traces of dust and work. She dries them carefully, smoothing the cloth before setting it down. There is a brief moment, just a few seconds, where she stands still, not because there is nothing to do, but because this is the small space between tasks, the small pause before the next part begins. The house above is fully awake now. Footsteps move freely. Doors open and close without hesitation. Voices carry more clearly. The day has settled into its rhythm, and she, quietly, remains at the center of it. She looks toward the next task, already forming, already waiting, and without a word, without a sound, she begins to move again, stepping forward into the steady flow of a day that will continue, piece by piece, in the same calm and careful way. By mid-morning, the house no longer feels like it belongs to the quiet hours. It has fully awakened. The silence that once filled the halls has softened into a gentle layering of sounds. Footsteps pass more often now. Doors open without hesitation. Voices drift in and out, sometimes clear, sometimes distant, like a soft current moving through the rooms. She moves within this change without altering her pace. Her steps remain light. Her hands remain steady. Though everything around her feels more active, she continues as she always does, guided not by noise but by routine. She carries a small tray again, but this one is different. Not for waking, not for the early morning. This one holds items for later, for the quiet spaces between breakfast and the rest of the day. A small pot, a cup, Something simple, something expected. She walks along the corridor, now brighter with daylight. The windows allow a soft glow to spread across the floors, touching the walls, making the house feel warmer, more open. She stops at another door, listens. There is movement inside, not hurried, not heavy, just the sound of someone shifting through their morning. She taps gently, waits. A quiet reply follows. She enters. This room is brighter than the first one she visited earlier. The curtains have been drawn back, allowing the daylight to settle comfortably across the furniture. The air feels different here, less heavy with sleep, more awake. She places the tray where it belongs, steps back. Her presence is acknowledged with a small glance, nothing more. She lowers her eyes slightly, then turns and leaves, closing the door with the same quiet care. Back in the hallway, she pauses for a brief second, not from hesitation, but to listen. There are more voices now, a distant conversation, a faint laugh. The house has found its rhythm for the day. She continues. There are still rooms that need attention, rooms that must be checked, adjusted, quietly maintained. She enters one that stands empty again, though not in the same way as before. This one shows signs of use, a chair slightly out of place, a book resting where it was left, a small object near the edge of a table. She moves through the room slowly, correcting, adjusting, returning everything to its quiet order. Her hands touch each surface lightly, as if careful not to disturb more than necessary. The room changes subtly under her care, shifting back into the calm state it is meant to hold. She steps back once more, observes, then leaves. The hallway feels familiar now, though it is never exactly the same. Each hour brings small changes, small movements, small signs of life that she notices without needing to think about them. She returns to the stairs, descends again. The kitchen welcomes her with warmth and a gentle sense of continuity. The fire still burns, though it has been adjusted. The air is steady, filled with the quiet presence of ongoing work. The cook stands near the table, preparing something with slow, practiced movements. The younger servant moves between tasks, her steps now more confident, more aligned with the rhythm of the space. The main servant steps in and takes her place without needing direction. There are items to prepare, cloth to fold, utensils to arrange. Everything continues. There is no break in the flow, only a smooth transition from one part of the day to another. At times, she moves toward the back of the house, where the air feels slightly cooler again. There are small spaces there that require attention, corners that must be checked, surfaces that must be kept in order, even if no one visits them often. She moves through these areas with the same care. Nothing is overlooked. Nothing is left undone. The day continues to unfold around her, but she does not follow it in the way others do. She does not sit. She does not pause in the same way. Her rest exists in the rhythm itself, in the steadiness of her movements, in the quiet repetition of her tasks. At one point, she steps near a window at the back of the house. The outside world is clearer now, the sky fully awake, the light steady and calm. She watches for only a moment, then turns away. There is always something more. She returns to the kitchen again, placing a folded cloth where it belongs, adjusting a small detail on the table that might go unnoticed by anyone else. The cook glances up briefly. Another small nod, a quiet acknowledgement that everything is as it should be. The main servant moves on. Her steps guide her back toward the stairs once more, carrying with her the same calm focus, the same quiet presence. The house continues around her, full, active, alive, and she remains within it, moving gently from one task to the next, never stopping, never rushing, simply continuing forward as the day carries on in its slow and steady way. As the morning settles into its later hours, the house begins to feel different again, not quieter, but calmer. The earlier movement, the gentle rush of waking and preparation, has softened. The sounds are still there, but they are more spaced, more settled, like the house has found its balance for the day. She feels this change without needing to think about it. Her pace does not slow, but it becomes even more steady, more even, as if it matches the rhythm around her. She stands once more in the kitchen, where the warmth now feels constant, no longer growing, no longer shifting. The fire burns at a stable strength. The air holds a quiet comfort. The cook moves less now, not because there is nothing to do, but because the larger tasks have already been completed. What remains is smaller, more precise, more focused. The younger servant dries dishes near the sink, her movements smooth, no longer uncertain. The small sounds of water and cloth fill the background. The main servant steps forward, reaching for a stack of items placed neatly on the table, polished silver. Each piece rests carefully beside the other, reflecting the soft light from the room. She picks one up and begins to inspect it. Even though it already shines, she runs the cloth across it again, slow and deliberate. The surface catches the light differently with each movement, small changes that only she would notice. It is not about making it shine more. It is about making sure it has not lost its quiet perfection. She continues, one piece after another. Time moves without being marked. No clock, no bell, just the steady passage of small actions. When she finishes, she arranges them again, each piece placed with care, aligned in a way that feels balanced, complete. She steps back for a brief moment, then moves on. There are floors to check now, not the grand rooms where footsteps have already passed, but the quieter spaces, the edges of the house where small traces gather unnoticed. She carries a brush again, moving into a side corridor. Here, the light is softer, filtered through smaller windows. The air feels still, untouched by the movement of the main rooms. She begins at one end. Each stroke of the brush is light, careful not to disturb more than necessary. The motion is slow, almost gentle enough to be mistaken for stillness. Dust gathers quietly, then disappears. The floor returns to its calm, smooth surface. She moves along the corridor, her presence leaving no sign behind except the absence of what was once there. At a corner she pauses. A small table rests against the wall, holding a decorative object. It is slightly out of place, turned just enough to feel uneven. She adjusts it, only a fraction, but enough. Now it sits as it should. She continues. The house feels different in these moments, not empty, but peaceful in a deeper way, less touched by the daily movement, more still. When she returns toward the main staircase, the sounds of the house grow again. Voices, soft steps, the quiet opening of doors. She blends back into it without hesitation. There is another task waiting. There is always another. She moves toward a room that has not yet been visited since the early morning. The door stands slightly open, a sign that it is ready for attention. She enters quietly. The space is calm but used. A window lets in steady light, falling across a desk where a few items rest. A chair is slightly turned. The air feels lived in. She begins her work, adjusting, straightening. Her hands move lightly across surfaces, correcting small shifts, restoring the quiet order that defines the house. She does not rush. There is no need. Each movement follows the last, naturally, without interruption. When she finishes, the room feels settled again, as if nothing had disturbed it at all. She steps back, looks once, then leaves. The hallway receives her again, familiar and calm. She walks without pause, her steps carrying her back toward the center of the house, where the day continues to unfold. The kitchen awaits again. The warmth, the steady presence of the fire, the quiet movement of others. She enters and takes her place, not at the front, not at the back, but within the rhythm itself. Her hands find their next task, a cloth, a surface, a small adjustment, and as the morning slowly leans toward the middle of the day, she continues unchanged, moving gently through each moment, her presence quiet, her work constant, her path steady as it carries her forward. As the day begins to lean gently toward midday, a subtle shift passes through the house once more. It is not sudden, not sharp, but something changes in the feeling of the rooms, in the way footsteps move, in the way voices settle into a slower, more measured tone. The morning has completed its work. Now comes a different kind of preparation. She feels it before she sees it. In the kitchen, the cook begins to gather items with a new purpose. The movements are still calm, but there is a quiet direction now, a sense of building toward something. Midday, a meal, not rushed, but expected. The main servant steps closer to the table, her hands already moving toward what needs to be arranged. Plates are set out again, though not the same as in the early morning. These are larger, placed with more care, aligned with a quiet precision that suggests something more formal. She lifts one, checks it, places it down, then the next. Each one spaced evenly, each one part of a pattern that only becomes clear when all are in place. The younger servant brings over additional items, placing them where they belong with growing confidence. Her movements are now smoother, her understanding deeper, as if the rhythm of the house has begun to guide her naturally. The cook works nearby, preparing food with slow, steady care. There is no urgency, no raised voice, only the quiet sound of utensils, the soft shifting of ingredients, the gentle warmth rising from the hearth. The main servant steps away from the table for a moment. There is more to do beyond this room. She carries a small stack of folded cloths and moves back into the corridor. The house feels fuller now, but also more settled. The early movement has softened into something steady, something that flows without interruption. She climbs the stairs once more. The light here is brighter than before, filling the hallway with a calm, steady glow. Doors remain open now, some partially, some fully, revealing glimpses of rooms in use. She moves past them quietly, unseen, or perhaps simply unremarked. She enters a room where a table stands near the window. It has been used earlier in the day, but now it must be prepared again. She lays the cloth across it, smooths it gently. Her hands move from one side to the other, removing every small crease, every uneven fold. The fabric settles into place, soft and even, catching the light in a quiet, delicate way. She steps back, looks, then adjusts a corner, only slightly. Now it is right. She places a small object at the center, a detail, simple but necessary. The room shifts with these changes, becoming ready for what comes next. She leaves as quietly as she entered. Back in the hallway, the sounds of the house continue, but they feel softer now, more contained. Conversations are quieter. Movements are more measured. The day has reached a kind of balance. She descends the stairs again. The kitchen is ready. The table is nearly set. The cook stands back for a moment, observing, making small adjustments with careful hands. The main servant steps forward to complete the arrangement. Utensils are placed. Cloth is aligned, everything brought into quiet order. There is no announcement when it is finished, no signal, only a shared understanding that the task has reached its end. She steps away. Her hands rest briefly at her sides, just for a moment. Then she turns. There are always other spaces, other small tasks waiting beyond the center of the house. She moves toward a side room, one less used but no less important. The air here feels still again, untouched by the preparations in the kitchen. She checks the surfaces, the corners, the small details that hold the quiet structure of the house together. Each movement is the same as before, gentle, precise, unnoticed. Time continues without pause. The house holds its steady rhythm, neither rushed nor still, simply moving forward in its quiet, measured way. And she remains within it, adjusting, preparing, maintaining, her presence flowing from one space to the next, carrying the calm continuity of the day with her as everything moves slowly toward the soft fullness of midday. By the time midday fully arrives, the house seems to pause in a quiet, almost invisible way, not a complete stillness, but a soft settling. The earlier movement has eased, and in its place comes a calmer rhythm, one that feels slower, more contained, as if everything has reached a gentle balance. In the kitchen, the preparations have been completed. The table stands ready, the food arranged, the small details aligned just as they should be. The cook steps back, her hands resting lightly against the edge of the table for a brief moment, as if marking the quiet completion of her work. The main servant stands nearby, observing without appearing to do so. Her eyes move across the table, taking in each detail, each placement, each small element that contributes to the whole. Everything is as it should be. She does not speak. She simply turns. There is another phase now, one that requires less preparation and more quiet attention. She moves out of the kitchen and into the corridor, where the air feels slightly cooler again. The light is steady, no longer changing, settled into the fullness of the day. As she walks, she listens, not for instruction, but for the subtle signals that guide her next steps. A door closing, a chair moving, the faint sound of voices gathered in one place. These are the signs. She follows them, not directly, but with quiet understanding. She moves toward a room where the midday meal is being taken. The door is closed, but the soft murmur of conversation passes through it. Calm and even. She does not enter. Instead, she stands just beyond, listening carefully. There is no urgency, no tension, only the quiet presence of people gathered together. She waits. This, too, is part of her routine, knowing when to act and when not to. After a short while, she steps away, moving down the hallway toward another room that stands empty for the moment. Inside, a window lets in steady light, and the air feels undisturbed. She begins again, adjusting, smoothing, restoring the quiet order that must remain constant, even as the rest of the house continues its daily life. Her hands move lightly across the surfaces, correcting small shifts, removing the faint traces of use that gather over time. Nothing dramatic, nothing noticeable, just the quiet return to balance. When she finishes, she stands for a brief moment, her gaze moving across the room, ensuring that everything feels as it should. Then she leaves. Back in the hallway, the sounds from the dining room continue, but they are softer now, more distant, as if the moment inside is slowly coming to its natural end. She moves toward the staircase once more, her steps as careful as ever, her presence blending into the quiet structure of the house. Downstairs, the kitchen waits. The fire still burns, though more gently now. The younger servant stands near the sink, her movements slower, less hurried than before. The rush of the morning has passed, leaving behind a softer pace. The main servant enters and takes her place once again. There are items to clear, things to prepare for what comes after. She begins without hesitation, a cloth in her hand, a surface before her, the same steady rhythm returning, guiding her through the next sequence of tasks. Time moves quietly, unmarked, unspoken. The house continues its gentle cycle, and she moves within it, as she always has, her presence constant, her work unbroken, carrying the calm flow of the day forward without ever needing to pause. As the midday hour begins to pass, the house slowly releases its brief stillness, not all at once, but gently. The soft murmur of conversation fades behind closed doors. Chairs shift. Footsteps begin again, though quieter now, more relaxed, as if the energy of the morning has softened into something lighter. She feels this change the moment it begins. Standing in the kitchen, her hands resting briefly on the edge of the table, she listens without looking. The rhythm is shifting again, and with it, her work moves into its next quiet phase. Soon the room will fill again, not with voices, but with the signs of what has just passed. She prepares before it arrives. Cloths are folded, spaces are cleared, her movements are steady, unhurried, as if she is gently making room for the next sequence of tasks. Then the first signal comes, footsteps in the corridor, a door opening, the faint movement of someone leaving the dining room. She does not turn, she continues, but her awareness sharpens, quietly adjusting to what is coming. Moments later, the process begins. Items are brought back, not all at once, but in small, careful movements. A tray, a plate, a cup, each one carried into the kitchen and placed down with quiet care. The younger servant moves beside her, receiving items, placing them in order. There is no confusion now, no hesitation. The rhythm has settled into her as well. The cook steps forward, beginning her own quiet work of sorting, checking, deciding what remains and what must be set aside. The main servant takes a cloth, begins again. Each surface that held the midday meal is cleared, wiped, restored. The table that was once carefully prepared is now gently returned to its simpler state. There is no sense of ending, only a quiet transition. The room shifts from one purpose to another without pause. She gathers the used items, carrying them toward the sink. The water runs softly as she rinses each piece, her hands moving with the same practiced care as before. Nothing is rushed, nothing is delayed. Each action flows into the next, as if guided by something steady and unseen. The sound of water becomes part of the background once more, blending with the soft movements around her. Time passes, not in large steps, but in small, continuous moments. When the last item is cleaned and set aside, she dries her hands and looks briefly across the kitchen. It is calm again, not empty, but reset, ready. She turns away. There are other spaces now, rooms that have been used during the midday hour, now waiting quietly for her attention. She steps into the corridor, carrying a small bundle of cloths, her movements as gentle as ever. The hallway feels different once more, quieter. The earlier activity has softened, leaving behind a kind of peaceful stillness that rests lightly against the walls. She walks toward a room that has recently been left. The door is open. Inside, the air still holds the presence of those who were there just moments before. A chair slightly moved, a surface lightly disturbed. She enters, begins again. Her hands move slowly across the space, restoring each small detail. The chair is returned, the surface smoothed. The room settles under her care, shifting back into its quiet balance. She moves from one room to the next, each one carrying its own small signs of use, each one gently returned to stillness. There is comfort in this, in the repetition, in the quiet certainty of what must be done. She does not need to think about what comes next. It is always there, waiting, clear. As she works, the light outside begins to change, though only slightly. It softens at the edges, losing a bit of its brightness, becoming warmer, more gentle. The day is moving forward, slowly, steadily. She returns to the kitchen once more, placing her cloths back where they belong, her hands moving with the same quiet precision. The cook stands near the hearth again, adjusting something with careful attention. The younger servant continues her tasks, her movements now fully aligned with the calm flow of the house. The main servant steps into her place without needing to be guided. Her hands find their next task, a small adjustment, a quiet movement, and as the afternoon begins to unfold, she continues unchanged, moving gently through each moment, her presence steady, her work constant, as the house carries on in its soft and unbroken rhythm. As the afternoon settles gently over the house, the light begins to soften in a quiet and almost unnoticeable way. It no longer fills the rooms with the steady brightness of midday. Instead, it rests more gently on the surfaces, stretching longer across the floors, touching the edges of furniture with a softer glow. She notices it, though she does not stop to watch it for long. There is always something to be done. In the kitchen, the rhythm has slowed, but it has not stopped. The fire burns lower now, its warmth steady but less intense. The air feels calm, carrying only the faintest scent of what was prepared earlier. The cook stands nearby, her movements quieter, more occasional. She adjusts something on the table, then steps back, observing in the same quiet way she has all day. The younger servant moves more slowly now, her steps no longer hurried, her tasks smaller, more spaced apart. The main servant stands for a brief moment near the center of the room, not resting, but listening. The house has changed again. The voices are fewer, the footsteps less frequent. There is a kind of quiet that returns in the afternoon, different from the early morning silence, but just as gentle. She turns toward the next task. A basket rests near the side of the room, filled with items that need to be taken elsewhere. She lifts it carefully, feeling its weight settle into her hands. It is not heavy, but it carries its own quiet responsibility. She steps into the corridor once more. The hallway feels calm, touched by the softer light. The windows no longer shine as brightly, and the air feels slightly cooler, as if the day has begun its slow movement toward evening. She walks without sound. Her steps remain steady, the basket held securely. She moves toward a set of rooms that have been used earlier in the day. Now they stand quiet again, waiting for her quiet attention. She enters the first. The space is still, but not untouched. A curtain has shifted slightly. A small object rests near the edge of a surface, just out of place. She sets the basket down, begins her work. Her hands move gently, adjusting each detail. The curtain is straightened. The object returned to its proper place, the surface smoothed with a soft cloth. The room changes, slowly, quietly, from used to settled. She pauses for a moment, looking across the space, feeling the balance return. Then she lifts the basket again and moves on. The next room carries a similar quiet story. A chair angled slightly, a window left open just enough to let in the cooler air. She closes it halfway, just as it should be. The chair is moved back, the small details corrected. Each room receives the same care, the same attention, the same gentle restoration. Time continues without interruption. The house breathes softly around her. In the distance, a faint sound of movement, a door opening, then closing again. She does not turn. She continues. When she returns to the corridor, the light has shifted again, becoming warmer, deeper, as if the sun has begun its slow descent. She carries the basket back toward the kitchen. The space feels familiar, constant. The fire still burns, though it has been reduced. The cook stands near the hearth, her presence calm and steady. The younger servant moves quietly near the table, her tasks simple, her movements smooth. The main servant sets the basket down. Each item is placed where it belongs, nothing left out, nothing misplaced. She washes her hands once more, the water cool, refreshing against her skin. She dries them slowly, smoothing the cloth before setting it aside. For a brief moment, she stands still. The afternoon holds a different kind of quiet. Not empty, but full in a softer way. She listens. The house is calm. The earlier movement has faded. What remains is a steady, gentle rhythm that carries everything forward without effort. She turns again. There are still small things to be done. There always are. She steps toward the next task, her movements unchanged, her presence quiet, as the day continues to unfold around her, slowly moving toward the peaceful, fading light of evening. As the afternoon drifts further along, the light begins to lean more deeply into the rooms. It stretches across the floors in longer lines now, touching the walls at a softer angle, resting gently on surfaces that have already been cleaned and arranged. So many times throughout the day, the house feels quieter again, not empty, but resting. She stands near the window for just a moment longer than usual, her eyes following the slow movement of light as it shifts across the floor. Outside, the world continues, but it feels distant from here, softened by glass and quiet routine. Then she turns. The next part of the day is already waiting. In the kitchen, the change is subtle but clear. The cook has begun preparing for the evening meal. The movements are still calm, but there is a new direction, a quiet beginning of another cycle. The fire is adjusted again, not as strong as the morning, but steady enough to carry the work forward. The main servant steps in without a word, her presence fitting naturally into the rhythm that is forming once more. There are items to prepare, not many, but each one must be handled with care. She begins with the table, clearing a space that had remained untouched for a short while. The cloth is straightened, the surface wiped gently, bringing it back into quiet readiness. The younger servant moves beside her, carrying small items, placing them where they belong, her steps careful and measured. There is a shared understanding in the room. No one speaks, and yet everything moves as it should. The main servant lifts a set of utensils, checking them one by one. Each piece reflects the soft light of the afternoon, its surface smooth and clean. She arranges them slowly, one, then the next, each placed with intention. There is no need to hurry. The evening will come in its own time. She steps away from the table and moves toward the back of the kitchen, where a small shelf holds folded cloths and other tools. She selects what she needs and returns, her movements unbroken, steady. The air feels different now, cooler, more settled. The sounds of the house are softer, fewer, as if the day itself has grown quieter. She carries a small tray once more and steps into the corridor. The hallway greets her with the same calm presence, though the light has changed again, warmer now, deeper, casting longer shadows along the walls. She walks slowly, her steps blending into the stillness. There are fewer doors open now, more of them closed. The house has begun to retreat into itself, preparing for the evening without needing to say so. She stops at one door, listens. There is no sound. She enters quietly. The room is empty, filled only with the soft glow of late afternoon light. Dust has not gathered, but there are always small things to adjust. She places the tray down, straightens a corner of the room, smooths a surface. Her hands move gently, restoring the quiet balance that must remain. When she finishes, she lifts the tray again and leaves. Back in the corridor, she pauses briefly, not from hesitation, but to feel the shift. The day is moving toward its close, slowly, without urgency. She descends the stairs once more. The kitchen awaits. The cook continues her work, her movements steady and calm. The younger servant stands nearby, assisting in small ways, her presence now fully part of the quiet rhythm. The main servant returns to her place, There are still tasks to complete. Small ones, final ones. She moves through them without pause. A cloth, a surface, a small adjustment. Each action flowing into the next. Time passes gently. The light continues to fade, though it is still present, still warm. The house grows quieter, more still. She finishes one task and begins another, her movements unchanged, her presence constant. And as the afternoon slowly gives way to the early signs of evening, she continues, steady and calm, moving quietly through the final stretch of the day, carrying the same soft rhythm forward as everything around her begins to settle into the approaching night. As the evening slowly begins to arrive, the house settles into one of its quietest transitions. The light fades gently from the windows, no longer stretching across the floors, but resting softly at the edges of the rooms before disappearing altogether. Shadows grow longer, then blend into one another, until the outlines of furniture and walls soften into a calm, dim stillness. She feels this shift before she sees it fully. In the kitchen, the fire becomes the center once again. Not strong like the early morning, not bright like midday, but steady, comforting. The warm glow fills the room in a gentle way, replacing the light that has now faded from outside. The cook moves quietly near the hearth, preparing the final elements of the evening meal. There is no rush. The work unfolds slowly, each movement deliberate, each task part of a familiar pattern. The younger servant carries a small stack of items to the table, placing them carefully, her hands steady now, her presence fully settled into the rhythm of the house. The main servant stands nearby, her attention moving across the room, noticing every small detail. She steps forward, adjusts a cloth, moves a plate slightly, aligns a utensil. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, but everything becomes just as it should be. The evening meal is prepared not with urgency, but with quiet precision. When the final arrangement is complete, she steps back. There is no signal, no announcement, only the quiet understanding that this part of the day is ready. She turns and moves toward the corridor once more. The hallway is dim now, touched only by the soft glow of lamps placed along the walls. The air feels cooler, calmer, as if the house itself is beginning to rest. Her steps remain light, her presence unchanged. She carries a small lamp with her, its gentle flame guiding her path as she walks. She stops at the first door, listens, a quiet voice from inside. She enters. The room is softly lit, the evening settling around it like a calm presence. She places the tray she carries onto a small table, just as she has done so many times before. But now everything feels slower, more relaxed. She steps back, waits only a moment, then leaves, door closing softly behind her. She moves from room to room, each one receiving the same quiet attention. A tray placed, a surface adjusted, a small detail corrected. The house feels different now, less active, more inward. The sounds are fewer, voices softer, footsteps slower. She continues through it all, her movements blending into the calm, her presence part of the gentle rhythm that carries the evening forward. When she returns to the kitchen, the space feels warmer, more contained. The fire glows softly. The cook stands nearby, her work nearly complete. The younger servant moves quietly, finishing her last tasks for the day. The main servant steps in and begins the final sequence, cleaning, arranging, restoring. Each surface is wiped, each item returned, each detail brought back into its quiet place. The room slowly transforms again, from use to stillness. She washes her hands, the water cool against her skin. She dries them carefully, sets the cloth down. There is a moment now, a small one, where everything feels complete. But she does not linger. There is still one final part of the day. She moves toward the staircase, climbs slowly. The hallway above is quiet, more quiet than it has been since the early morning. Doors closed, lights dim. The house is settling into rest. She walks along the corridor, her lamp casting a soft glow that moves gently with her. She checks each space, not fully, just enough. A glance, a small adjustment, a quiet assurance that everything is as it should be. She pauses near a window. Outside, the sky has darkened. The world beyond the house is quiet. Still, she stands for a moment longer than usual, then turns. Her steps carry her back toward the servant quarters. The corridor there is dim, the doors closed, the silence deep and calm. She reaches her room, opens the door, steps inside. The space is just as she left it. Simple, still. She sets the lamp down, removes her apron, folds it carefully, places it in its place. Her movements are slower now, not from fatigue alone, but from the quiet end of the day. She sits briefly on the edge of her bed, her hands resting lightly in her lap. There is no sound, no movement, only stillness. After a moment, she lies down, the blanket pulled gently over her. The lamp is extinguished. Darkness returns, soft, complete, and as the house settles fully into the quiet of night, she closes her eyes, her breathing slow and even, the steady rhythm of the day finally coming to rest, leaving only the calm, peaceful silence that carries her gently into sleep. Sometime later, in the deep and quiet middle of the night, the house breathes differently. It is not the living movement of daytime, nor even the softer drifting of evening. It is a slower thing now, a long, resting stillness, held together by timber, fabric, ash, and darkness. The walls seem to keep their own silence. The staircases rest. The doors remain closed. The lamps have long since burned low or gone out entirely. Even the cold feels quieter. She sleeps lightly, not because she wishes to, but because she has learned to. The narrow bed beneath her is still, the blanket pulled close, the small room dark except for the faintest seam of moonlight touching the floor near the door. Her breathing remains slow. One hand rests near the edge of the blanket. Her face, softened by sleep, holds none of the careful alertness of the day, and yet some part of her remains listening. It is the habit of a servant's rest, never fully separate from the house, never entirely her own. A sound comes from somewhere far below, very small, a settling noise only, perhaps wood adjusting to the cold, perhaps a faint shift in the dying fire. Nothing urgent, nothing that would wake most sleepers at all. But the great house carries sound in curious ways at night. A quiet thing in one room can seem nearer in another. She does not wake fully, only stirs, then settles again. Outside, the night lies cool over the street. Beyond the windows, a thin silver light touches rooftops and chimney pots. Somewhere, very far off, a carriage passes with muffled wheels. Then silence returns, deeper than before. Within the servant corridor, all is still. Other doors remain closed. Other narrow rooms rest behind them. A row of small private silences, each one temporary, each one bordered by duty waiting just beyond the next dark hour. Time moves gently in such a house at night, not marked by bells, not divided by trays or footsteps or rooms to prepare, only carried forward by darkness itself. Down below, the kitchen sits in shadow, transformed. By daylight, it is a place of motion, warmth, surfaces, hands, voices kept soft but constant. Now it is almost another room entirely. The hearth glows with a low red heart beneath a layer of ash. The iron kettle has been removed. The table stands bare and dark. The shelves are quiet, cloths folded, tools returned, water stilled in its basin. The last warmth of the day lingers near the bricks, but only just. If one were to stand there in that hour, one might hear the smallest sounds, the whisper of cooling metal, the soft settling of embers, a faint sigh of air moving somewhere under a door. The kitchen does not sleep exactly. It waits. The entire house does. Upstairs, she shifts once more in her bed. Her dreams, if they come, are not of grand scenes, not of celebrations, music, journeys, or strange bright imaginings. They are quieter than that. Bits of hallway light, the shape of a tray, the turning of a stair, the sound of water filling a bucket, the kind of dreams made from repetition, from long days, from work so familiar it begins to live softly beneath sleep itself. For a while, the night remains unbroken. Then a bell rings, not loudly, but clearly, one note, then another, small, distant, but unmistakable. Her eyes open at once. There is no confusion in the first second, no slow waking, no reaching for memory. The body knows before the mind fully does. She is upright almost immediately, sitting in darkness, listening. The bell does not ring again. That can happen. One quiet summons in the night. A room above needing water. A fire requiring attention. A late discomfort. An ill sleeper. A servant learns not to guess too much before moving. She swings her feet to the floor. The wood is cold. Her hands find the shawl she keeps nearby, and she wraps it around her shoulders over her night clothes. There is no candle lit yet. For a moment she listens again, letting her eyes adjust to the dimness. Nothing more. Still she rises. When she strikes the match, the flame appears so suddenly in the dark that the room seems briefly startled by it. Then the candle catches, and everything settles into a soft, golden half-light. The bed, the chair, the basin, the folded apron, the worn edges of familiar things. She takes the candle and opens her door. The corridor beyond is dim and silent, its darkness interrupted only by the faint spill of moonlight from a far window. Her candle adds a small moving circle of warmth around her hands and face as she walks. No doors open, no voices call, only the quiet board beneath her step, the fabric of the shawl against her sleeve, and the tiny flicker of the flame. She moves down the corridor and toward the stairs, one hand careful near the wall. The house at night asks for a different kind of movement than the house by day, slower, more listening, more attention to shadow and stillness. At the landing she pauses. The bell, when it rings from one room, often gives some hint of direction in memory, not by sound alone, but by pattern, by habit. By knowing which rooms are likely to summon at such an hour. She turns not toward the kitchen first, but upward, toward the rooms of the family. The stair carpet softens her steps. Her candlelight slides across the banister, across framed shapes on the wall, across doors that remain closed and calm. Near one room she slows. There, a line of light beneath the door, very small, just enough. She lifts her hand and taps lightly. A weak voice answers. She enters. The room smells faintly of banked fire and cooled linen. Curtains remain drawn. On a nearby table, an oil lamp burns low. In bed lies an elderly relative of the household. Not sleeping well, one hand resting above the blanket, the face pale in the dimness. The request is simple: water. And perhaps that the fire be looked at. She inclines her head softly and sets down the candle. A pitcher stands nearly empty. She lifts it, notes the level, and moves to the hearth. The fire there has fallen too low, not fully dead, but losing its warmth. She kneels, the movement careful and quiet, and gently stirs what remains. A glow answers from beneath. She adds a small piece of coal from the scuttle, not enough to wake the room with heat, only enough to restore comfort. The metal gives a quiet click. A small orange life returns. Then she takes the pitcher and slips from the room, leaving the door just as softly as she found it. Down again, not all the way to the servant hall, to the floor below, and then to the back staircase, narrower and darker. The one servants use so often, their feet know each turn even in poor light. The kitchen is colder now when she enters, but not unfamiliar. The ember glow in the hearth gives just enough depth to the dark that her candle does not seem alone. She sets the empty pitcher near the basin. Water remains, but it is cool from the night. She chooses the freshest she can, pours carefully, listens to the quiet sound filling the jug. Then she checks the main hearth with a practiced glance. The embers are safe, low but sound. No need to build the fire fully, not yet. For a brief moment, she stands in the kitchen with the filled pitcher in hand, and the whole house seems gathered into silence around her. This is a different part of service, less visible, less spoken of. The work done not in the shape of meals or polished trays or open corridors, but in these small hours when comfort depends on those willing to leave warmth for cold floors and dark stairs. She carries the pitcher back up. The room above remains quiet. The old relative has not slept, though the eyes are half closed. She pours water into a glass, places it within easy reach, adjusts the coverlet slightly where it has slipped, then tends the lamp wick so it burns a little, steadier without brightening. The room too much. No more is asked. None needs to be. She leaves, taking her candle, closing the door with that same careful hand she uses for everything. In the corridor, she pauses. Sometimes after such a summons there is another, not from another bell, but from awareness itself. If one room needed tending, perhaps another fire should be checked. Perhaps a window latch left uncertain should be seen to before the cold deepens. Such things are not always commanded. Some are simply known. So she walks farther along the hall. At one window, she notices the slightest thread of air moving the edge of a curtain. The latch is not fully set. She puts down the candle for just a moment, secures it, and the curtain stills at once. In another room, empty at this hour, she steps just inside to glance at the grate. Ash settled. No danger. She leaves it undisturbed. At the turn of the corridor, the house opens into a longer stretch of darkness, and for one quiet moment she stands there entirely alone, a small candle in a great sleeping place, and listens to what the night holds. Nothing, only stillness, and her own breathing. Then she returns, back down the stairs, back through the corridor, back to the narrow servant floor where the air is cooler and the silence deeper. She enters her room, sets the candle down, removes the shawl, and sits once more at the edge of the bed. This time she does not lie down at once. There is a softness in the stillness after movement, a kind of hush that arrives only when one has gone out into the dark house and returned safely with the small task done. Her hands rest loosely in her lap. The candle trembles once, then steadies. Her room is simple as ever, but in this hour it feels almost hidden from the rest of the world. She lowers the flame, leaves only enough light to settle herself, then lies down again, drawing the blanket close. Her body welcomes the bed more deeply now, the sheet cool at first, then warm. The house has quieted once more around her, as if the bell had been only a small ripple in a much larger stillness. Sleep returns slowly, like water filling a shallow place. Not all at once, but gently enough. Her eyes close. The candle goes out. Darkness gathers again without weight, only softness. And somewhere below, in the kitchen, the embers continue their low, patient glow, waiting for the hands that will soon return to wake them into morning. The hours before dawn are always the strangest. Night is still present, but it has begun to thin. The dark remains, though no longer with the deep certainty it held at midnight. The house can feel this before anyone sees it. Air changes, silence changes, even cold changes. It sharpens a little, then softens, as if deciding whether to remain. She wakes before the sky does. This time there is no bell, no interruption, only the familiar inward knowledge that the day is beginning again. Her eyes open to darkness that is not quite the same as before. The room remains still. The floor remains cold. The blanket rests lightly over her, yet something in the air has turned. She lies still for one brief moment and listens. The house is not awake, but it is nearing wakefulness. This is the hour that belongs to servants more than anyone else. The hour before footsteps overhead, before bells, before voices, before the smooth appearance of a household ready to begin. She sits up, the movement quiet and practiced, and places her feet on the floor. Every action feels familiar because it is, and because familiarity is its own kind of comfort. She dresses in the dimness, not hastily, but with economy. Dress first, apron next, hair smoothed and secured, sleeves adjusted, nothing wasted, nothing theatrical, only readiness. When she lights the candle, the room appears once more around her, unchanged by night. Bed neatly left, chair where it belongs, basin still, small chest quiet in the corner, everything waiting just as she left it. She takes the candle and steps into the corridor. A door opens softly farther down. Another servant is waking too, though they do not speak. They need not. The silence of early morning is companion enough. She makes her way to the stairs, downward again, always downward first, toward the lower heart of the house, where warmth must be made before comfort can be expected above. The kitchen greets her with that same cold hush as yesterday, and yet not quite the same. No day begins exactly as another. The ashes in the hearth lie differently. The air carries a slightly sharper chill. A pan left on the rack reflects the candle from a new angle. Small differences only, but enough to remind her that repetition is never perfect copying. It is simply a trusted path through changing moments. She sets down the candle and kneels by the hearth. The ashes of the night are pale over the deeper red that still survives beneath. She brushes gently, revealing the hidden glow left from yesterday's labor and the midnight tending. It answers her with a quiet warmth. She adds kindling carefully, then slightly larger pieces, then waits, watching, as the first small flames begin to take hold. The sound comes slowly, a tiny crackle, a soft pop, the beginning of the fire. No great blaze is needed yet, only enough to start the room breathing again. As the warmth grows, she rises and moves to the back door. When she opens it, dawn has not yet arrived, but its promise stands somewhere beyond the dark yard. The sky is a deep, fading blue, and the air outside carries that clean chill which belongs only to the earliest hour. She fetches water. The pump handle moves with its steady rhythm. The water runs cold and clear. The containers fill one by one. Her breath clouds faintly, then disappears. No one sees her there. The yard is empty. The street beyond, nearly so. It is one of the few moments in her day when the world feels wide rather than enclosed. She carries the water in, sets it by the hearth to warm, checks the bread, checks the table, touches each surface with her eye before touching it with her hand. Soon the kitchen begins to change around her, not by magic, though the household above may later seem to think so. A fire where there was cold, water where there was emptiness, order where there was stillness. She wipes the table, straightens a folded cloth, brings out the cups, checks the tray that will be needed first. Everything prepared before it is asked for. The younger servant arrives not long after, quieter than on her first morning, as if she too has learned something from the house itself. A nod passes between them. No words. The cook follows later, wrapped against the cold, carrying the quiet authority that returns with her each day. The room is no longer empty, and yet its calm remains. The work begins again, not as a repetition of the day before exactly, but as the next movement in a long, unbroken chain. She slices bread in the growing warmth. She listens for the first stirrings above. She places cups in line. She checks the kettle. The fire brightens the edges of the room while the windows remain dark. Then, at last, the first pale seam of dawn appears at the edge of the back window. It is very small, just enough to soften the blackness beyond the glass. She notices it while carrying a tray from one table to another, only for a second, but it is there. Morning arriving without sound. There is something peaceful in that moment, though she does not name it. Perhaps she never would. Her life is not arranged around naming such things. It is arranged around moving through them. Soon the house above will wake. Soon the first bell will ring. Soon footsteps will come, and steam will rise, and trays will be carried upward again, and all the visible forms of comfort will take shape around those who receive them. But for now, in the earliest breath of dawn, she stands in the warming kitchen, one hand resting lightly near the kettle, the fire alive again, the water heating, the table prepared, and the day opening before her in the same calm way the last one ended, quiet and steady and waiting to be lived. The light continues to grow, though slowly, almost as if it does not wish to disturb the calm that still rests over the house. At first, it only touches the edges of things, the frame of the window, the corner of the table, the faint outline of the door. Then, little by little, it spreads, filling the kitchen with a soft, gray glow that replaces the deeper shadows of night. She notices it without turning her head. Her hands continue their work, steady and practiced, but somewhere in her awareness, the change is clear. Morning has arrived, not loudly, not suddenly, but gently. The fire now burns with a quiet strength, no longer small and uncertain. The kettle begins to whisper as the water inside warms. The air in the kitchen shifts from cold to something softer, more welcoming. The cook moves near the hearth, adjusting something with calm attention. The younger servant stands at the table, arranging items with care, her movements now fully settled into the rhythm she has learned. The main servant steps forward. The first tray of the morning must be prepared. She places each item with quiet precision. A cup, a small plate, bread, butter, nothing more, nothing extra, everything as expected. She lifts the tray, its weight familiar, balanced, steady, and once again she moves toward the corridor. The house above remains mostly still, but not entirely. There is a faint sense of stirring now, small sounds that begin to gather, almost too quiet to notice. A shift, a creak, a distant movement. She climbs the stairs carefully, her steps softened by the carpet, her hands steady beneath the tray. At the top, the hallway feels different than it did in the deep night. The darkness has lifted. The windows now hold a pale light, and the doors stand quietly, waiting. She walks forward, stops at the first door, listens. There is no sound yet. She waits, just for a moment, then taps gently. A pause, then a soft reply. She enters. The room is dim, but touched by morning. The air feels still, though no longer heavy with sleep. She places the tray down with the same quiet care as always, her movements precise, her presence light. She steps back, waits only long enough to ensure everything is as it should be, then leaves. The hallway receives her again. She moves to the next door, then the next, each one part of the same quiet sequence, each one carrying its own small difference, its own faint sound, its own gentle moment of transition from sleep to waking. She does not rush. There is no need. The rhythm of the house guides her. Back and forth she moves, up and down, tray in hand, then empty, then full again, each journey flowing into the next without interruption. By the time she returns to the kitchen once more, the light has grown stronger. It fills the room now, resting across the table, touching the walls, blending with the warm glow of the fire. The house is waking, not fully, but enough. The first voices begin to drift from above, soft, unclear, the sound of a door opening, footsteps crossing a floor. The day has begun again. She sets the empty tray down, wipes her hands, moves to the next task without pause. There are more trays to prepare, more rooms to visit, more small details to attend to. The cook works beside her, the younger servant moving between them, each one part of the same quiet system that brings the house into its day. The main servant does not think of it as beginning again. It is simply continuing. The night has passed, the morning has come, and she moves forward within it, her steps as gentle as ever, her hands steady, her presence quiet, as the house slowly fills, once more with the calm and careful rhythm of another day unfolding. As the morning deepens, the house grows steadily into itself once again. The early quiet fades into a gentle layering of sound, not loud, not hurried, just enough to remind the walls that the day has begun. She stands in the kitchen, her hands moving over a clean surface, smoothing it lightly, though it does not need it. The habit remains, the care remains. Even when nothing is wrong, there is always something to prepare. The fire holds a steady warmth now. The kettle has been lifted and replaced more than once. The air feels alive in a quiet, settled way. She listens as she works. Footsteps above, more than before. Doors opening with less hesitation. Voices still soft, but clearer now, moving from room to room like a gentle current. The house is no longer waking. It is awake. She reaches for another tray. The motion is familiar, almost part of her without needing thought. Items are placed carefully, each one exactly where it should be. There is no searching, no checking twice. Her hands know. She lifts the tray, moves toward the corridor again. This time, the hallway greets her with a different feeling. Brighter, warmer, more open. Doors stand slightly ajar now, and the light from the windows stretches further along the floor. The silence has softened into something that carries small sounds easily. She walks forward, stops at a door that is already partly open. No need to knock. She enters quietly. Inside, the room is fully touched by morning. The curtains have been drawn back, and the light rests gently across the furniture. Someone stands near the window, looking out. She places the tray down, steps back, her presence acknowledged only by a small movement, a slight turn of the head. She leaves as quietly as she came. Back in the hallway, she continues, room after room, each one different, each one the same. A tray placed, a surface adjusted, a detail corrected. The rhythm holds her steady. There is comfort in this repetition, not in sameness, but in certainty. She knows what comes next, always. When she returns to the kitchen, the space feels fuller again. The cook moves with quiet purpose, preparing what comes after the early morning. The younger servant carries items back and forth, her steps light, her movements aligned with the calm flow. The main servant sets the tray down, moves immediately to the next task. There is no pause, only transition. She gathers a set of utensils, checks them, arranges them in quiet order. The soft sound of metal against wood blends into the background, part of the steady hum that fills the room. She wipes a surface, adjusts a cloth, straightens a line of items on the table. Everything flows, nothing stops. The house continues around her, growing into its full day. At one point, she steps toward the back door, not to leave, but to feel the air, It has changed. Warmer now, lighter. The outside world feels closer than it did in the early morning, though still distant from the quiet structure of the house. She stands for just a moment, then turns back. There is more to be done. She moves through the kitchen once more, placing things where they belong, adjusting what needs to be adjusted, always with the same gentle care. The cook glances up briefly, a small nod. The younger servant follows her lead without needing to be told. Everything continues. The main servant takes another cloth, steps toward the corridor. The hallway is now fully alive in its quiet way. Light, movement, soft sound. She walks through it without drawing attention, her presence as light as ever, her steps steady. There are rooms still waiting, small details still needing her touch. She enters one, begins again. A chair slightly out of place, a surface lightly disturbed. She restores it, slowly, carefully. When she leaves, the room feels calm again, as if nothing had changed at all. She moves on, from one space to the next, from one small task to another. The day continues to unfold, and she continues with it. Never ahead, never behind, always exactly within its quiet rhythm, moving gently forward as the house carries on around her. As the later morning begins to gently turn toward midday once more, the house settles into a quieter, more balanced rhythm. The earlier movement has softened, not ended, just eased. She moves through the corridor with the same calm presence, her steps light, her hands ready for whatever comes next. The light now fills the hallway fully, resting across the floors in a steady, warm glow. Doors stand open more often now. Rooms feel lived in, yet still they wait for her. She enters one slowly. The air inside is calm, touched by the warmth of the day. A chair sits slightly away from its place. A small object rests near the edge of a table, as if left there without thought. She steps forward. Her hands move gently. The chair is returned, the object adjusted, the surface smoothed with a soft cloth. Nothing dramatic, nothing noticeable, but everything shifts back into quiet order. She pauses for a brief moment, not to rest, but to observe, then turns. The hallway receives her again. A faint sound comes from further down. Footsteps. Another servant passing, carrying something small, moving quickly but quietly. They do not speak. They do not need to. The house moves as one. She continues, down the corridor, toward the stairs, descending again, her steps steady, her presence unchanged. The kitchen feels different now, not busy, but prepared. The fire holds a soft, steady warmth. The table stands ready for what will soon follow. The cook moves with quiet focus, her hands shaping the next part of the day. The younger servant stands nearby, arranging items with growing ease, her movements no longer uncertain. The main servant steps in. There is no need to look around. She knows. She moves to the table, adjusts a cloth, aligns a plate, checks a small detail that only she would notice. Everything is nearly ready. She steps back slightly, her eyes moving across the space, taking in the quiet balance of it all. Then she turns. There are still small tasks beyond this room. There always are. She takes a folded cloth and moves once more into the corridor, her steps light against the floor. The house feels steady now, calm. The sounds are softer, more spaced, as if everything has found its place within the day. She walks toward another room. The door stands slightly open. Inside, the light falls gently across the space. The air feels still, but not empty. She enters. Her hands move once again, a surface wiped, a small adjustment made, a detail corrected. The room settles. She leaves. The hallway continues, each step carrying her forward, each moment flowing into the next. There is no need to think about what comes later. It will arrive, as it always does. She descends the stairs once more, returns to the kitchen. The cook glances up, a quiet nod. The younger servant continues her task, her movements now smooth, steady. The main servant takes her place. Her hands find their next task without hesitation. A cloth, a surface, a small movement. Everything continues. The house breathes softly around her. The day moves forward, and she remains within it, steady and calm, her presence quiet, her work unbroken, as everything gently prepares for the next quiet turning of the day, as the day moves quietly past its center and begins its slow return toward afternoon once more. The house settles into a softer rhythm again. The earlier preparations have been completed. The rooms hold their calm order. The sounds of movement are lighter now, more distant, as if the house itself is resting between one part of the day and the next. She stands in the kitchen, her hands resting lightly on the edge of the table for a brief moment, not stopping, just feeling the quiet. The fire burns gently. The air is warm, but not heavy. The light from the windows is steady, though it has begun to soften at the edges. She turns. There is always something waiting. She gathers a small set of items and steps once more into the corridor. The hallway feels peaceful, more still than before. Fewer doors are open now, more of them closed. The house has drawn inward again, holding its quiet within. She walks slowly, her steps blending into the calm, her presence as light as ever. She stops at a room she has already visited earlier in the day. It has changed again. Not much, just enough. A chair slightly turned, a surface lightly touched. The faint signs of use that gather and fade throughout the day. She enters. Her hands move gently. The chair is returned, the surface smoothed. The room settles once more. She pauses, looks briefly, then leaves. Back in the hallway, the light stretches longer across the floor now, its warmth softer, its reach wider. She moves toward the stairs again. Down, always moving, always continuing. The kitchen greets her with its steady warmth. The cook stands near the hearth, her movements slower now, more spaced apart. The younger servant works quietly at the side, her tasks simple, her rhythm calm. The main servant steps in, places the items she carries where they belong, nothing left out, nothing misplaced. She washes her hands. The cool water passes over her fingers, carrying away the small traces of work. She dries them slowly, smooths the cloth, sets it down. There is a moment, very small, where everything feels complete, but it does not last. She turns again. The next task is already waiting. She takes a cloth, moves toward the corridor once more. The house continues its quiet breathing around her. The day moves forward, and she follows it without thought, without pause, her steps steady, her hands gentle, her presence constant as everything slowly carries on toward the soft and quiet approach of evening once again. As the afternoon begins to soften once more, the house gently prepares itself for the final stretch of the day. The light has changed again. It no longer fills the rooms in full brightness, but rests more gently along the edges, stretching across the floors in long, quiet lines. The air feels calmer, cooler, as if the warmth of the day is slowly stepping back. She moves through the corridor with the same steady presence, her steps light, her hands ready for the small details that wait quietly in every room. There are fewer sounds now, fewer footsteps, fewer voices. The house feels as though it is slowly folding into itself. She enters a room near the end of the hallway. The space is quiet, touched by the fading light. A window stands slightly open, allowing a soft breeze to pass through. The curtain moves gently, brushing against the wall with a faint, almost silent motion. She steps forward, closes the window just enough, Not fully, only as it should be. The curtain settles. The air stills. She moves to a nearby surface, smoothing it lightly, though it holds no visible disturbance. Her hands pass over it with the same care as always, maintaining the quiet balance that defines the house. She steps back, looks once, then leaves. The hallway receives her again, now dimmer, now softer. The shadows begin to gather, though gently, without weight. She walks toward the stairs, descending once more. The kitchen awaits. The fire burns low again, its glow steady but quiet. The cook stands near the hearth, preparing the last elements of the evening meal. The younger servant moves slowly, her tasks fewer now, her steps calm. The main servant steps into the room. Her presence remains unchanged. She moves to the table, adjusts a cloth, aligns a plate, checks a small detail that would go unnoticed by anyone else. Everything must be ready, not perfectly, but quietly, completely. She steps back, observes, then turns. There are still rooms to check, still small things to complete before the evening settles fully. She carries a small tray and steps into the corridor once more. The hallway is dim now, touched by the warm light of lamps placed along the walls. The outside light has faded further, leaving behind a soft, golden glow that fills the space in a calm and gentle way. She walks slowly, stops at a door, listens. No sound. She enters. The room is empty, still, waiting. She places the tray down, adjusts a small detail, smooths a surface. Her movements remain gentle, unseen. She leaves, closes the door softly behind her. The house feels quieter with each passing moment, more still, more settled. She returns to the kitchen once more, placing the tray where it belongs, her hands moving with the same quiet precision. The cook finishes her work. The younger servant completes her final tasks. The main servant takes a cloth, begins the last sequence of the day, cleaning, arranging, restoring. Each surface returned, each item placed, each detail brought back into quiet order. The room transforms slowly, from use to stillness. She washes her hands, dries them carefully, sets the cloth down. For a brief moment she stands still. The evening has arrived. The day is nearly complete. She turns, moves toward the stairs once more, climbs slowly. The hallway above is quiet, dim, peaceful, doors closed, lights soft. The house has settled. She walks along the corridor, checking each space lightly, her presence gentle, her movements calm. At a window she pauses. The sky outside has darkened. The world beyond is quiet. Still, she stands for a moment, then turns. Her steps carry her back toward her room. She opens the door, steps inside. The space is just as she left it. Simple, still. She removes her apron, folds it carefully, places it where it belongs. Her movements slower now, softer. She sits briefly on the edge of her bed, hands resting lightly. No sound, no movement, only quiet. Then she lies down, pulls the blanket gently over herself. The lamp is extinguished. Darkness returns, soft, complete. And as the house settles once more into the calm silence of night, she closes her eyes, her breathing slow and even, the steady rhythm of the day finally coming to rest again, leaving only the peaceful stillness that carries her gently into sleep. Before the night has fully deepened, there is one more quiet turning that passes gently through the house. It comes softly, almost unnoticed. A final settling. The last small sounds fade away. A door closes somewhere in the distance. A faint movement overhead, then stillness again. The fire below lowers into a quiet glow, its warmth no longer spreading, only resting. She lies still in her narrow bed, the blanket light over her, the air calm, her breathing slow and even. It feels, for a moment, as though the entire house is holding the same quiet breath. Nothing asks for attention now. Nothing calls her name. The long chain of tasks that carried her through the day has finally loosened its hold. There is no tray to lift, no surface to smooth, no step to measure, only rest. The darkness around her is soft, not heavy. The small room feels gentle in its stillness, its simple shapes fading into quiet outlines. The chair stands where it always does. The basin rests untouched. The folded apron waits for another morning. Time moves slowly here, not marked, not counted, just passing. Her thoughts, if they come, do not stay long. They move like quiet shadows, fading before they take shape. The day does not replay itself in her mind. It does not need to. It has already passed through her hands, through her steps, through her quiet presence in every corner of the house. And now it has settled. Outside, the night deepens further. The sky grows darker. The world beyond the walls becomes distant, quiet, almost forgotten. Inside, the house holds its calm. Every room closed, every surface still, every space resting exactly as she left it. The rhythm has paused, not ended, only resting. She turns slightly beneath the blanket, her movement small, barely disturbing the quiet around her. The bed accepts her again, the warmth returning slowly. There is comfort in this moment, not in grand ways, but in the simple stillness, in the quiet end of a day that asked for much and gave back only this small, gentle rest. Her eyes remain closed, her breathing steady, and as the final traces of wakefulness fade, she drifts deeper into sleep, carried not by dreams of anything new, but by the same calm rhythm that has shaped her entire day. The house, too, seems to drift, from stillness into deeper stillness, until even the smallest sounds fade completely, and nothing remains but the soft, peaceful quiet of night, holding everything gently in place, waiting patiently for the slow and certain return of another morning. Before the night gives way again, there is a moment that exists between two worlds. It is not fully night, not yet morning, a quiet space where everything seems to pause, as if the house itself is deciding when to begin again. She lies still in her bed, the darkness around her softer now, less complete than before. Somewhere beyond the walls, something has changed. The air feels different. The silence is no longer deep, but light, almost fragile. Her eyes open slowly. There is no sudden waking, only a gentle return. She does not move at once. She listens. The house is still, but not in the same way. The night has loosened its hold. The day has not yet arrived. She sits up quietly, her movements slow, careful, as if not to disturb the delicate stillness around her. Her feet touch the floor, and the coolness greets her again, familiar, expected. She dresses in the same quiet way as before, each movement practiced, each motion soft. Her hands know what to do without thought. When she lights the candle, the small flame appears gently, its glow filling the room just enough to bring the shapes back into view. Nothing has changed, and yet everything feels ready to change. She opens the door. The corridor waits, dim, silent, but no longer heavy. A faint line of early light touches the far end, just enough to suggest what is coming. She steps out, her candle guiding her path. Another door opens somewhere behind her, another servant waking. The day begins this way, quietly, without announcement. She moves toward the stairs, downward, as always. The kitchen greets her again with its cool stillness. The fire has rested into ash. The air holds the last trace of yesterday's warmth. She sets the candle down, kneels, begins again. The same first task, the same careful movements. Ash moved aside, kindling placed. The match struck. The flame grows slowly, gently, as if waking along with her. The sound returns, a soft crackle, a quiet warmth. The room begins to breathe again. She stands, moves to the back door, opens it. The sky beyond is lighter now, not bright, but no longer dark. A soft blue stretches across the horizon, carrying the promise of another day. She steps outside. The air is cool, fresh, calm. The world feels wide for a moment, still untouched by the noise that will come later. She fetches water. The pump moves steadily beneath her hands. The sound of water flows again, clear and soft in the quiet morning. She carries it back inside, sets it near the fire. The kitchen begins to change once more, from stillness to movement, from silence to quiet activity. She moves to the table, touches the surface lightly, wipes it gently, each motion the same as yesterday, and yet new, because it belongs to this morning, this moment, this beginning. The younger servant enters soon after. Then the cook, each one taking their place, each one moving into the rhythm without needing to speak. The house above remains quiet, for now, but not for long. She prepares the first tray, places each item carefully, lifts it, turns toward the corridor. The light has grown stronger now, the hallway no longer dark, the doors waiting once again. She walks forward, stops at the first door, listens. The faintest movement inside. She taps gently. A pause, then a reply. She enters, places the tray, steps back, leaves, and just like that, the day has begun again. Not as something new, but as something continuing. The same quiet rhythm, the same gentle flow. She moves through it without pause, without hesitation. Her steps steady, her hands calm, her presence unchanged, as the house once again wakes around her, slowly filling with the soft, careful life of another day unfolding.